Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Hooligan Report. We're back underway at the EPL, week 1 done and dusted, and joining me again this week I have Cooksen along.
Heyo, how's it been?
And we also have NUFC Tiger back along.
G'day guys.
We'll jump right into it, guys. It's been a pretty exciting weekend of football to get back underway, and we'll get your thoughts first, Cooksen, just in general on how you thought the weekend was.
Started out shit, I would say, and proceeded to be really quite normal, close games, teams are still feeling it, getting ready for a long season. But then we'll also see drunk people too, which is also quite funny.
Gotta love a good drunk spectator running onto the pitch and doing a pretty decent free kick. Wasn't too bad.
Sign him up, he's good enough for us, probably good enough for a Premier League team.
Did better than Ericsson at any rate. And then UFC, how'd you find the weekend? I feel a bit bad. You guys both suffered losses to start off with, but how'd you find it?
Yeah, it's, I guess, good to have the season back up and running. Sort of feels like it's been a while, but hopefully we'll get back into the swing of things. From a personal perspective, it probably wasn't the best start for us with, I guess, a loss against Man City, but, I thought we showed a bit of promise, and a lot of the new signings had a bit of good debuts, I would say. So,
I tell you what, that Cabela, I like the look of him pre-season, and he's really carried on with it. He looked very good, very tight.
Yeah, he certainly doesn't lack any confidence on the ball, and he's always willing to try a few things that you don't see every day. So he looks like he could be one that gets the fans quite excited. So we'll be interested to see how he goes.
Absolutely. Well, we might look at the first game we're going to have a little bit of a chat about first, and that was United's loss to Swansea 2-1. Moyes at least was able to start the season with a win, Cooksen. So how do you see the start of the season?
Oh, it was shit, to be honest.
I was really tempted to play that clip from you last week saying that you hoped United would at least cheer you up after the Saints got smashed by the Swans, and I do feel a little sorry that, you lost in both of those matches. So the Swans undid you in both cases.
But I didn't watch one of them. I was too busy watching the passes. Good concert.
You missed Buddy almost kicking his 10 goals, but the discussion's for another time, I suppose. Yeah, so how'd you find the match?
Well, we started out quite well. It was just the same issues a lot. It looked very like Van Gaal needs to get the Moyes out of the team. Like, he needs to beat the crap out of every one of those players, or at least show his balls or something. Just shock.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah. It just looked slow. It looked laboured. We honestly miss Danny Welbeck. Don't underestimate what he brings. He brings pace. He brings power. Quite a difference compared to Rooney and Mata, who, let's be frank, are not the tallest or strongest of people. But yeah, I just reckon we lost. We did not look solid at the back at all. Honestly, it was as bad as leaky as an old man's, nappy, to be honest. But yeah.
So you think it was the defence that let you that undid you? Was that the main thing? Yeah.
Defence. You just look. First goal. Defence and probably Darren Fletcher. Darren Fletcher was not good at his man marking. The Swansea attacking midfielders, and defence was just all over the shop because we didn't start out with an actual right back. Our right back was Jesse Lingard, who's a winger. Then we put on Adnan Januzaj, who's a winger, because we had no Raphael, and I don't think Valencia was on the bench. And pretty much in the second goal, Tyler Blackett, who I thought was pretty good. You saw him in the first half, I think, just yelling and screaming at players, which was very good on his first team debut, but he gave the ball back far too quickly, which is probably something you need to learn at the higher level. So that's just kind of youthful inexperience. I can handle that. But yeah, it's just, honestly, it's just, our midfield is shit. I'd probably make a case for a midfield for every other Premier League team to walk up and start. That's no joke. We've signed Rojo.
I was going to ask about that, because he's obviously going to take a spot. Is it at left back that he plays?
He plays, he's mainly a centre back, but he can play left back, so it's there for both, which is very good.
Yeah.
He's probably
he plays left back for Argentina, doesn't he? That's what I was thinking of, yeah.
But yeah, he's probably going to start. He's fairly decent, and, I brought up some numbers. Alright, this is taking into account roughly the last 5 years or so. Pretty much, Manchester City and Chelsea have spent nearly double what we have, or thereabouts. That's not competitive at all. And here's the real kicker for you. Do you want to guess how much money Manchester United have spent on bank checks and interest for being taken over?
Oh, I have no idea.
Just pick a number.
It's going to be a big one, isn't it?
Yep.
I don't know. 50 million?
No.
No?
700 million pounds.
Oh, shit.
What?
I'll reiterate that point. 700 million. I mean,
And that's been spent on what?
On some interest and bank charges are being taken over by the Glazers.
Right. Oh, so that's your debt payments.
Yeah. I mean,
Wow.
that could be used. I mean, that's probably enough to buy out Real Madrid's first team at least twice over.
Yeah.
I mean, this is...
It's funny when you see like that sort of impact that the debt can have, and you look at a club like Leicester where their owners just came in and wiped the debt clean, and the impact that can have for a club where you just eliminate that debt. As you say, it's just so costly.
Yeah. I mean, we have the revenue coming in. It's not... Pretty much how I see it is the Glazers and Woodward are sitting on this giant pile of money, which is like sugar, and we have other clubs being ants walking off saying, oh, can we have some of that? We'll give you this. And they're like going, no. I mean, what good is that money there if we're not going to spend it?
You're sounding like an Arsenal fan, Cooksen.
Yes, but we have the money and we should be spending it. I mean, we're one of the biggest clubs in the world and we're just sitting on our asses twiddling our thumbs saying, yeah, no value. It's a bit expensive, don't want to pay an extra, like if we paid an extra £5 million, we would have Eden Hazard.
Yeah. Well, it's a bit like Liverpool. You haggle over a couple of million, and it's like, in the scheme of things, at the size of the club you are, is it really worth haggling over a few million if you're going to get a quality player like that?
Yeah. It's not worth it. I mean, honestly, that's the difference between City, Chelsea, Madrid, and Barca. They find a player, they'll just write a blank check, they fill it in, and he's ours.
Did you catch the match NUFC?
No, I did see some of the highlights. I think the best one was probably Ashley Young's.
Which apparently was a hoax. Apparently it didn't actually land in his mouth.
I did see
the scandal that's broken today was that the bird didn't actually shit in his mouth. It's ruined the weekend. It's ruined. There was nothing else good about that weekend, and now that's been taken away from us.
I don't even.
So that's actually been completely debunked.
Yeah, well, apparently, I don't know. Apparently, it's it just looked like there was bird shit in his mouth because he had spit in his mouth or something. Which, to be fair, I'm not surprised by because he didn't seem to react too much when it happened.
That's what I thought when I saw it. He didn't seem to.
Didn't seem to be too bothered.
So
yeah, I don't know what he does in his spare time. Maybe he's used to it, but I don't know.
But if you had bird crap on your mouth, you'd be rolling around on the floor.
Yes, spewing up or something. Yeah.
You'd have asked to be subbed. I mean, you'd be like, I'm gone. Stop this shit.
One final thing I wanted to say on the United match, it's another humorous note. I don't know if either of you caught the little kid who was asked for his comments after the match who said, Nanny, there was a spare seat next to me and my dad. Nanny should have been sat up there for as much use as he gave the team. And I thought, as a 6 or 7 year old or however old he was, he's got a future in punditry with comments like that. Nanny, well, Nanny's off on his way off, isn't he now? In the Swampfield.
Yep, he's off tomorrow.
Yeah.
Brisbane.
So I suppose that's an interesting start of the season for United. But we'll move on to the next match I wanted to chat about quickly was the Spurs-West Ham game, only in the sense that it also links into the Hull game that I want to talk about in terms of the penalty and setting off for the handball. I don't know if you guys have seen the incident where it's an obvious penalty, I would say, because the player's got his arms raised in the air, almost smothering the ball. But I thought the red card, in addition to the penalty, was a little bit harsh, and I think it's a trend we're starting to see where handballs are sort of dealt with quite harshly by refs, who kind of jump the gun, I suppose, a little bit on how to deal with them. Did either of you see the incident? Do you have any thoughts on it?
That was a Cole Norton red card.
It was,
yeah. Yeah, I saw that. I thought it probably was a penalty. I think it was a Nolan shot that it sort of looked like it was going to go towards goal, but he had his arms up, but I thought the red was a bit harsh.
It seemed one of those ones where, his hands are raised, so you have to give the penalty because it's an unnatural position, but the pace of the shot, and you can't say it was intentional, I don't think, is perhaps how I would say it. So you give the penalty, but maybe you don't give the red, or you give, it's a hard one, I suppose.
I think maybe a yellow, possibly.
Yeah. Penalty shots to replace the original missed shot.
Well, exactly. And it's almost a double penalty in the end. You're giving the red and you're giving the penalty and the red. So you're giving them basically a certain goal and you're reducing them by a player. It's quite a harsh penalty.
I mean, probably, should be yellow. I mean, unless it's really blatant, they should probably try to avoid giving red cards.
Yeah. And I mean, we say it was an almost certain goal, and then he goes off and fluffs the penalty anyway. So let's Spurs off a little bit there, and of course they then go on and win the game after the Hammers suffer a red card as well.
Yeah, certainly.
So it was an interesting game, I suppose, and as we've already touched on, of course, highlighted as well by the spectator who decided to he'd had enough's enough. He's seen Eriksen's free kicks flying every which way, so he decides to take it on matters into his own hand and try one himself. Well, didn't give too bad an effort for himself.
Yeah,
he should have gone in.
Didn't he?
Sign him up now, I reckon, as we were saying.
What I found best though is you look at the ball, you just see them standing there, you see them casually moving their heads as when following the ball.
Yeah, just going, oh shit.
It's the tiny things that fun.
We just hit, I guess.
The next game I wanted to touch on for one of our fellow mods is the Leicester and Everton game, which I thought was actually one of the more exciting games for the weekend, which I was keeping an eye on because I was out at the Star Casino, so I had all the games up on the screen, so I was keeping an eye on it while I was watching my boys play. And Chris Wood scoring the late equaliser I thought was really exciting and really good for him as a Kiwi lad. Making his Premier League debut, I'd only assume. I mean, I know he was with West Brom for a little bit, but I assume making his Premier League debut. And they didn't look out of place in the Premier League, I must say.
For them to... Yeah, so I think what I read, the Leicester fans were very excited to obviously be back in the Premier League, and they sort of created a lot of noise and excitement for what we saw with Palace last year. So certainly for their fans, I think getting that draw... and I think it was a fairly late equaliser too, that Wood scored, so...
Yeah, I think he got it right towards the end. It was one of those late goals that we got on the weekend.
So I think he came off the bench.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, it certainly would have sent the home crowd into, delirium, and, I'm sure they all went home happy, maybe not even expecting to get a draw.
Well, I think the important thing for Leicester is because they've got such a hard start to the season that point will really sort of boost their morale, I suppose. They've got games against Chelsea and I think Arsenal and that sort of team coming up.
Ooh, that's going to be a fun couple of weeks.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how they go. I mean, it's one of those things where they'll start without much momentum, which will make it a bit tough for them because presumably they won't get a win for the first maybe month or so. And it'll be a bit tough, but I think the point against Everton will at least kind of get them going in some sort of sense.
Yeah, well, they should hopefully take from the game that, they can match it with some of the stronger teams in the division, and if they sort of play with the same unity, they might be able to pick up a few more surprise results along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. The next game I want to talk about is Hull's game against QPR, and there's one point, we've talked about the handball red card in the Spurs game, but I do want to bring to light, I don't know if you guys have seen it, the handball that was given against Hull late in the game against QPR, against Chester, was no joke one of the worst decisions I've ever seen in a professional football match. Chester brings his arms behind his back, as you generally do when you're standing in the box not wanting to give away a handball. He has his arms by his side. The player crosses the ball from outside the box and he's about a metre or two away from Chester, and it smashes him probably in the chest, in that beneath the shoulder sort of thing, in the armpit. Ref points to the spot to give the penalty. I don't understand what he expects Chester to do in that situation to get out of the way, because presumably he thinks Chester's somehow stuck an arm out or something, which he hasn't done. And I won't be surprised if he's reffing a championship match next week, because thankfully McGregor's saved us and saved the penalty. But it was one of the most awful decisions I've actually seen, I think.
Just wait. I've got perfect music for this.
We're in the Twilight Zone, aren't we? We're in the Twilight Zone. Yes, Steve Bruce came out after it. What?
Bit of conspiracy theory right there.
Big conspiracy. Well, we had it happen against Spurs last season, so, there are some City supporters who are coming out saying it's the London bias, because it's pretty ridiculous, and I think Bruce is quite rightly quite pissed off at that. So we'll see how that goes in the coming weeks. The one good thing out of it, as some people have said, is you get a few bad decisions against you each season, and that should hopefully be one of them out of the way, and we didn't lose any points out of it, so it's not too bad. But the only other thing I want to take out of that match is the unfortunate news today that Robert Snodgrass is out for 6 months with a dislocated kneecap. which is really unfortunate for him. As a new signing at a new club, of course you want to get underway pretty well, and unfortunately it's not going to be the case for him, and we'll probably see him back March or April just for the run-in at the end of the season.
Was that an injury picked up in the game?
It was. He, after about 30 minutes, was in a tackle with Joey Barton, of all people. Joey Barton, not to blame at all. It was really innocuous, but and Joey Barton actually, quite rightly, one of the first tweets he sent after the match was wishing Snodgrass all the best and hoping it wasn't too bad. But it's just one of those unfortunate ones. It was very innocuous. He just twisted his knee in the challenge, and not the greatest news for City fans. He cost us about $8 million as well, so that's not, you don't want to see that sort of thing happen to one of your big signings.
Yeah, not ideal for sure.
Next game is the late game from Saturday, which was Arsenal just getting over Crystal Palace. Now, this surprised me a little bit because I thought with Pulis leaving Palace that they'd be ripe for a big Arsenal win, but it took until the 91st minute for a Ramsey winner to get Arsenal over the line.
Yeah, I didn't see that game. One of my Arsenal mates reckons they played a relatively weakened team because they had an eye on the Champions League qualifiers that I think they drew this morning.
Yeah, 0-0 this morning.
Yes, I'm not sure if that's necessarily the case or not, but they certainly left it late to get the 3 points.
And it was obviously surprising because Palace actually took the lead in that one. I noticed Sonogo starting in place of Giroud and that sort of thing, so as you say, probably a weakened lineup, and going 1-0 down, Wenger probably would have had flashbacks to the Villa result last season.
And it didn't really work out again, considering they just drew in Besticas, so...
Well, exactly. I mean, they rested their players for a 0-0 draw, where Demba Ba almost opened the scoring in the first 5 seconds or something like that.
It was a pretty audacious attempt from the kickoff.
Pretty impressive.
Would have been a great goal, that's for sure.
Do we have any other thoughts on the Arsenal game? I mean, I'm trying to think who would have started. I mean, Sanchez played for them, obviously, got the assist for the first goal. Any thoughts from you guys?
I think Crystal Palace probably surprised a few people with, even taking the lead. I thought maybe everyone was expecting maybe a bit of a cricket score, but
that was solid.
Yeah, they seemed to keep together, and they certainly didn't embarrass themselves. So, and I think they just got a new manager, I believe.
Malky Mackay? Was it Malky Mackay who's going to go in?
Yeah, I don't know if it's been confirmed, but I think he would look pretty close to being named, I think. So,
which is interesting because there was some late running from Tim Sherwood, which would have been interesting.
Yeah.
But
there's probably a good thing considering Sherwood's he's a nut job. Let's put it that way.
He had a pretty decent record with Spurs, to be honest.
Yeah, but his presses were he was making Mick Malthouse look normal.
Not an easy task.
That's probably never a good thing, is it? But it's interesting because I wonder whether Pulis might have had them pretty well drilled for the Arsenal game, and so we still might have seen the effects of the Pulis team mentality against Arsenal. But whether or not they can kind of maintain that in his absence, or whether or not Malky Mackay can sort of... Because the thing is that Malky Mackay seems a very different sort of manager to Pulis. I mean, very different style of football. So much more open, much more free-flowing and attacking from what I believe he played with Cardiff early last season. So it'll be interesting to see if he can turn the squad around to his style of football quite quickly.
I mean, you never know. I mean, the best managers do change quite a lot, so he probably could be very relaxed about it. He probably will go more defensive than what he did at Cardiff, I'd say.
He'd probably learn from his mistakes, you'd expect. And
I think you might.
A great chance for him to redeem himself as well after what happened with the fallout with Cardiff.
It's certainly, I guess for him, he's probably got maybe a point to prove that he belongs as a Premier League manager, so it's a good chance for him to, I guess, seize that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. The next game to talk about is Liverpool's win over the Liverpool reserves, or the Southampton A's against the Southampton B's, whichever way you want to look at it. Just getting over the line 2-1 in the end. And I want to make special note of £12.5 million man Shane Long's glorious header that just went wide in the closing minutes of the game to deny Southampton a draw. And boys, that's what you pay for with your $12.5 million. We'll take that cheque to the bank every day of the week. Thanks very much.
Meanwhile, United paid $16 million for an Argentinian World Cup defender. English. It does wonders for you.
Oh, it does. It's brilliant. How did you guys see the game? I mean, I reckon Sterling, Sturridge, Henderson, take your pick. They all had pretty impressive games, I think.
Yeah, probably just Like you look at Sturridge, he's in pretty good form, and Nick right now, I think he's got like 37 goals or thereabouts in like the last 55 matches.
Something like that.
Give or take.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, something like that. When Sterling's continuing on what he did last year.
Sterling's very impressive. I mean, there was talk that he's sort of now being played more as a striker, and at, what is he, 20? You don't really see it because he's such a small player, but he looked pretty good.
Yep, did Glenn Johnson play?
He did, and he did not look great. And I think it was basically his final game because they've just signed, is it Moreno?
Yeah.
So he'll be slotting in Glenn Johnson from now on, you'd think.
That drunk guy in the Tottenham game did probably a better job than Johnson.
Oh, yeah. Glenn, yeah. Well, the other point was Henderson with a glorious assist for the opener for Sterling. I'm sure Liverpool fans would be loath if I didn't mention that one. It was one of the assists of the round, I think, but I don't think you can take away from Fabregas for the assist of the round, which we'll talk about now is Chelsea's game against Burnley. Fabregas basically stole the show, I think, and picked up where he'd left off with Arsenal in terms of bossing the Premier League, really. How did you see his and Costa's debuts for Chelsea, guys?
Very, very good. I mean, Chelsea are probably the favourites of the league right now as we speak. I mean, they've improved. I mean, they probably could use another striker as a reserve because, I mean, outside of Costa, it's Fernando Torres. Again, the Tottenham bloke could probably do better than Torres.
There was some stat about the amount of minutes it took Torres to score his first Chelsea goal, and it was something ridiculous. It was well into the hundreds, if not thousands, and Costa comes along and does it after 15 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, Costa remains fit, Chelsea win the league. Yeah. It's that simple. I mean,
Courtois was so impressive.
Yeah. I mean, Courtois is the number one. That's obvious. They got a solid defense. Midfield's incredibly deep. And got a Hazard, who'll probably be the best player in the league. This is probably the best player in the league, let's be honest. I mean, Chelsea look very impressive but there's something that seems odd about Jose. Like, that's just my opinion for it.
Odd in what sense?
It's not the Jose we're used to seeing. You know, in the past, how he was a bit more snarky. Now he's just gone for sarcasm wherever and he's just baiting everyone.
Oh, it's the arrogance. I reckon it's because, yeah, you're right, they're favourites for the league and he's just sitting there going, laugh it up, boys, bring it on.
I reckon this is my theory behind what happened to Jose. I mean, the Real Madrid job broke him. Yeah. I mean, he'll never admit to that, but yeah, that place is a legitimate circus. And two, I reckon he's disappointed that he didn't succeed Fergie at United.
That was obviously a big rumour at the time that he was going to step in and take over from Fergie. Because it was never really proven whether United chose Moyes or Mourinho kind of chose Chelsea, I suppose. But so you reckon it was? I reckon
that's where Mourinho's changed from his past, where he was was a lot more funnier and was kind of original, kind of fresh, arrogant but not too arrogant. Now he's just, I really don't give a shit. Yeah. I'm just here. Give me my paycheck. I'll win you a game.
Yeah.
I reckon he's changed.
And they've got Leicester next week, don't they? So that'll be an interesting one. At the bridge, poor Leicester, I suppose.
Yeah, big challenge for Jets, boys.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last game, of course, last but not least, was Man City's 2-0 win over Newcastle. We touched on it early in the piece. The new boys looked pretty impressive for Newcastle. And I think in the end, 2-0... you might have pushed for a draw, but 2-0 in the end isn't too bad a result.
Yeah,
well, certainly.
NUFC, I ranted about United. SM ranted about the referees. Now, you have to rant about something.
How about Sunderland's above you on the table? How's that feel?
Yeah, well, that's actually, to be honest, everyone's above us on the table. We're actually last at the moment, so... but it's not too bad. We pinched Colback and he had a really good game against Man City. So he certainly looks like he'll be a great signing for us. We've already started nicknaming him the Ginger Perlo, so might see him into the England squad one day. But certainly we've got a lot of...
Sorry.
Yeah.
That was just a joke. Don't worry about it.
Okay. To be honest, I did expect to lose the City game. And we actually played City first game up last season and lost 4-0, so to halve the losing margin is an improvement of sorts. So we had quite a lot of debutants as well, so...
You think they'll only get better as they gel?
Yeah, I mean, I think they showed a lot of promise, but for a lot of them it was like, their first games in the Premier League, so like Jen Mata, who's our replacement for Debussy at right back, I think he got caught out a few times in defence, but, as he adjusts to the pace and the tempo of the Premier League, hopefully he'll become a bit more defensively sound. And we touched on Cabela before. I think he's quite slightly built, but he's got very quick feet, great ball control, and he also looks like he has a bit of that Kabay magic with his sort of vision.
He reminds me a little bit of Kabay.
Yeah, well, he played quite a few nice passes, and I think in France they say he was sort of like the next Kabay, so it's almost like, in that sense, it's almost like a like-for-like replacement, which would certainly be good if it can turn out to be true for us. But I guess, the frustrating thing was we sort of had a few chances late on to nab that equaliser, but City's, their quality sort of came to the fore when it counted, and Aguero's finish really was a very good goal. And as a neutral, I hope to see Aguero play, or at least stay fit, because when he's on song, I think he'd give City the edge in the title race if he can stay on the park.
Well, that's the other thing I wanted to touch on is Aguero coming off the bench and scoring, which is a great sign for City fans. As you say, if he stays fit, it really could make or break their title chances in a way. He's quite an important part of that side, I would say. And Silva's goal as well was very well taken. So you've gone down to two pretty impressive goals. So not the end of the world, I would suspect, as a Toon fan.
No, certainly not. We've got Villa this weekend, who picked up a pretty impressive win at Stoke. So no disrespect to Villa, but I think they're a more realistic chance for us to beat than Man City. So
exactly.
Yeah, so and like even just touching back on another one of our signings, Riviere, who is our striker. He's used to playing in front of like 6,000 fans at Monaco. So playing in front of Pax St James's 50-odd thousand noisy fans, it's probably a bit of a shock for him. Yeah. Once they sort of get that first game out of the way, and he doesn't have Vincent Kompany breathing down his neck, he might be able to find a bit more composure, I guess, against Villa. But it'll be certainly an interesting game to see if we can take that sort of good form in a losing effort to getting the 3 points on this coming weekend.
Well, absolutely. We might move on and I wanted to talk about the 3-5-2 system as our topic for the week. We'll try and touch on a new topic each week as they appear to be relevant from the weekend's games. But I wanted to talk about the 3-5-2. I think it ties in quite well with Cooksen, with United's loss on the weekend, but it also was the battle of the 3-5-2s in the Hull QPR game. So I wanted to get your thoughts, either we'll go Cooksen first, and then if you have any NUFC, about the 3-5-2 system and its place. It's kind of coming back into vogue, I suppose.
Yeah, it's Louis van Gaal's system that he now uses out of his traditional 4-3-3, because as we know of the Netherlands, they did not have Kevin Strootman, which necessitated extra reinforcements for defence and one less winger, so shift another winger up front, and he's doing it for us because his opinion is that we don't have the defenders to play a 4-3-3. Or we don't have the wingers and defenders, so we probably do need it. I mean, it doesn't help our cause when Raphael and Luke Shaw are out, because that would undisputedly be the two wing-backs.
Yeah.
But it's probably also defensive midfield too. It needs to be solid, needs to be compact. I mean, you need to have some sort of pace in it. So you need to have you need to have the playmaking, with the deeper forward who acts as a link between the number 10 and the faster forward who needs to hold the ball well and be creative with it, like Robin, Welbeck, etc., etc. So yeah, I reckon it works if you have the cattle, but if you lose one player in that system, it just goes to complete shit. I mean, we had the 4-2-3-1, which worked much better for us, than our 3-5-2, which worked incredibly well in pre-season. But because we lacked the fullbacks, it just failed miserably for us.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you saw the comments. Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville had a discussion on Sky Sports following the United game about the 3-5-2 system, where they had a bit of a dispute about the necessity for specialised wing-backs as opposed to fullbacks. Do you have any sort of opinion on that? I mean, as you just said, you kind of need those specialised players, and I think it was Carragher who was saying that the modern fullback can play that wing-back role quite easily. And I'd probably lean towards Gary Neville's side of the fence, which I think is also your side of the fence, which is that, no, you do actually need those specialised sort of players.
I reckon it depends on the fullbacks you have, really. I mean, someone like Raphael could, if they have a bit of issues in defending, they probably could go forward a bit more, but like our fullbacks are relatively solid. I mean, Raphael is quite solid as a defender, and so is Luke Shaw. I mean, Raphael occasionally has issues with positioning and whatnot, but he's still very solid. But again, it really does depend on the fullbacks you have. I mean, Luke Shaw did not look the world's best at wing-back because he's a more natural defender compared to Reece James, who during pre-season was the wing-back and looked fantastic. So it's kind of half and half. It depends on player from player.
I completely agree. I mean, for Hull, someone like Ahmed El Mohammadi looks brilliant at right wing back because he has the pace to get up the wings and to whip the crosses in, and he's got the defensive ability to drop back and defend when needed. But at right back, when we're playing in a 4-4-2 system, early last season he was a liability at right back, and there can't be that, like, it can't have been the fact that it was just him on the day having a bad game, because there was such a difference when he had that cover from that third centre back who was playing on the right of defence in the 3-5-2 system, as opposed to when he was the right back. I think, as you say, it depends on the player, but the 3-5-2 system offers that extra defensive security for the wing backs to allow them to press up further forward when needed without the fear that they'll be exposed too much on the counter.
Yeah, and you also have the defensive midfielder too, who also helps out. So pretty much
because that was the point raised on the board about how Swansea undid you guys, was that you didn't have the strong defensive midfielder to link with the defence, and that their system with one up front actually was able to pull apart the 3-5-2 system for you guys. And I suppose Herrera would be that defensive player, or would it be Carrick?
Fletcher was defensive midfielder playing, but again, it was caught out ball watching far too many times. How Van Gaal sees it is he assigns a number to every player, so it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, on. He sees the midfielders made out of 3 players, the 6, 8, and 10. Number 6 is a defensive one where I reckon we need to sign a midfielder, and where we probably would expect, hopefully, the next midfield signing to be, whether it be Vidal, Lucas Silva, Carvalho, or anyone. Number 8 is what Herrera was brought to be. He was pretty much done box to box, where he has to support Mata, but it has to be good enough to defend and be very flexible, suddenly turn the 3-5-2 into a 5-2-1-2. So yeah, it depends on which players you have. I mean, I want pretty much Herrera's box to box though. He's not our defensive midfielder.
Yeah. NUFC, did you have any thoughts on the system? I mean, did you see either of the 2 matches that we've been just having a quick chat about?
I didn't see either of the matches. I did have a quick look at Gary Neville and Cam Carragher's their little discussion on the specialised fullbacks versus wingbacks, and I sort of agree with both of you that in a 3-5-2 system you probably want specialist wingbacks rather than trying to throw a fullback into that position and adapting them to the system. I think really the big thing is your wingbacks need to be able to, they're your widest players, so they're going to be providing a lot of the width in attack, but they also need to have the same, I suppose, that high work rate and the same, a very strong, or equally strong defensive mindset to drop back and help the defenders, because if the centre-backs are outnumbered and you've only got, I think, a 1 defensive mid who's screening them, potentially opens you up quite easily on a counter-attack. So, and I think a wing back, you really need to have good stamina and fitness as well, because I think Gary Neville might have touched on saying that he found it horrendous playing as a wing back because he couldn't cope with running up and down the wings for 90 minutes. So,
well, that's it, like you say, because otherwise you get exposed on the counter. If the wing backs aren't prepared to drop back and very quickly turn it into a 5-man defence, then yeah, as you say, you get opened up quite easily.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you don't, usually you don't look to, I suppose, sub your wing backs or your full backs during a game. You expect they can run out the full 90 minutes. So if they still start to struggle late on in the game and they're not giving that burst of energy when you're trying to chase a winner or an equaliser, or they start to tire and they don't drop back, then it can, lead to pretty bad consequences in the context of the match.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the way we tried to tackle that last season was to bring in players who could be a bit flexible, in that in one sub we could change from being a 3-5-2 to a 4-4-2 quite easily by moving one of the wing backs up onto the wing and dropping the other back as a permanent fullback. But as you say, that's so difficult to have players that can actually transition from those two roles, because they are quite different, as I think we're saying. But it was a good first topic. We've all agreed on the role of the wingbacks, I suppose. So we might now move on to closing up with previews for each of the games for the weekend. We'll just run through the main ones, I think, of interest. So we might start with the Chelsea game against Leicester. How do you guys see that one playing out?
Chelsea 5-0. Jose's going to get them.
Chelsea home game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's at the Bridge.
Yeah, in their sort of form, it's pretty ominous for Leicester, even though they did quite well on the weekend. So,
it's just Chelsea. They're going to want to put a stamp as soon as possible, and Jose's going to get them going for the kill.
I really like the look of this Fabregas-Costa partnership. As we were talking before, one of the assists for the season already, and could well end up being the assist for the season, was Fabregas' to Schürrle, but just Fabregas in general and Costa's work rate throughout the game. Yeah, as you say, that just looks so impressive.
I think Fabregas has sort of been brought in to sort of really control their midfield tempo, I think. So he's certainly a guy that you'd want pulling the strings in the midfield, and if he can sort of get back to that form that he had for Arsenal before he left for Barcelona, or going on his one performance to date, but it certainly looks like he hasn't missed a beat. So
yeah, he could right back in.
Yeah, very influential signing for Chelsea's aspirations for the title.
And your own Newcastle are playing Villa in the early game, which should be a welcome relief for you after the 1:30 a.m. on the Sunday last week. Yeah,
certainly still feeling it actually at work at the moment. So, so I think the 9:45 on the after Saturday night is certainly something that I'll be relishing. So.
And at this time of year, it's a great game because it's you've got the AFL leading right into it, so it's a nice little run through.
Yeah, exactly right. I'll be sort of excited to see our other big signing, CM De Jong, hopefully making his debut this week. He missed the City game with a slight injury, and we'll probably also get Tiote back as well. So those two will probably give us a nice boost in the middle of the park, and De Jong probably at set pieces as well. So fingers crossed we might be able to push Villa and get a win.
Yeah, I mean, I could see you guys probably taking a 2-0 or a 2-1 win, I reckon. Villa did look pretty good against Stoke, but you guys are, with no disrespect to Stoke, I think you guys are cut above Stoke. And Cooksen, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'll probably expect Newcastle to win 3-0. I mean, I'll back a Frenchman to score. That's just probably common sense with a Newcastle game. But yeah, it's just, they're just probably better than Aston Villa, really.
Yeah.
But then again, anything can happen.
Yeah, Villa did have a few surprises last season. They seemed to win the games that they weren't expected to, and they lost the games that they should have. So it will be an interesting one. The big one Saturday night is Everton against Arsenal. I had a few interesting games between those sides last season. Everton at home. This one's a pretty hard one to call, I reckon.
I'm going to go Everton 2-1.
Yeah?
I reckon because Lukaku is... Well, he's a physical beast. I mean, Arsenal, say what you want about Arsenal, but they do not like physicality.
Yeah.
I mean, but I just expect Everton to want to be able to turn it into a kick like Stoke City under Pulis, but just get a bit stuck in and just impose themselves, and that's why I reckon they'll win.
Yeah, NUFC?
Yeah, well, that's sort of looking at the fixtures. I'd probably say that's the probably the highlight of the Saturday night games. So
Yeah.
I think it possibly a draw. I mean, both teams. Well, Everton certainly can definitely beat Arsenal on their day, and Arsenal have a lot of quality themselves. So I think had the game been at the Emirates, I'd probably lean towards Arsenal, but because it's at Goodison, I'll sit more on the fence and say a draw.
Yeah, I think I'm with you guys. It's pretty 50-50, but I'll give Everton the slight edge because it's at home. I think the Germans are coming back into the side for Arsenal, which could be interesting, like Ozil and Mertesacker, to see how they, and Podolski presumably as well, to see how they lift the side. But I think Coleman might be due back for Everton as well, so he had a pretty good couple of games against Arsenal last year, so I might go Everton 2-1 as well with Cooksen. Of the Sunday night games, we've got my boys up nice and early against Stoke, which understandably I don't think anyone else is going to be too thrilled by, so I won't say too much about it. It's just after our Europe games, so it'll be interesting to see how we back up. The only thing I'll say is Andy Robertson had a fantastic debut against QPR. I went on about him a little bit in pre-season about how brilliant he is, and goal line clearance against QPR and whipped in a few pretty decent crosses to Jelavic, and he's only 20 as well, which is pretty impressive. So if anyone's looking for a reason to watch the Stoke Hull City clash, that's one I'd give them. But no, I don't think there's too many highlights out of this one. I don't think maybe a 1 or 2-0 win to one of the sides, but it's another one that you can't really pick a winner out of, really.
Don't know. You never know what Bojan can do.
Yeah, well that's it. I mean, Bojan, could pull one out of nowhere. We're the sort of side that players seem to like to announce themselves against, so I'm hoping he waits another week before he does that.
Wait up, let's see when's that on.
That's on at 10:30 on the Sunday night.
That's a pretty good time slot actually as well.
So it's not too bad, thankfully. On at the same time as Spurs against QPR, which is a nice early London derby for QPR to welcome them back to the Premier League. How do we see Spurs backing up after their narrow win against West Ham? 2 London derbies in a row, actually, for Spurs.
Well, it's probably...
Yeah.
I'll probably say Spurs will win, really.
Do we give QPR any chance, really? I mean, Spurs only narrowly got over a 10-man West Ham.
It's Spurs, though. I mean, you can't predict Spurs. They're the North Melbourne of soccer, pretty much, or football. You just never know with them. I mean, they could probably destroy QPR. They could probably lose embarrassingly 1-0. So I'm probably going to go for just a nice, normal 2-0 victory. Everything's stock standard, surprisingly.
And UFC?
Yeah, I suppose on paper you'd expect Tottenham to get the chocolates there. Were they going to appeal Norton's red card? I think I saw they were going to at least try and appeal it. Because I'm not sure if they have a right back. Because I think is it Walker? He's their first choice right back. I think he's injured at the moment. You
might be right. Yep. Yeah. So it looks like they're going to appeal the red card. So I guess the outcome of that will be interesting for Spurs fans.
Yeah, and I think QPR actually have a reasonable squad on paper, and I didn't see their game, so you'd probably have a better idea than myself, SM. But yeah. I think defensively they were quite sound from most
and
accounts.
Remy looked very, very impressive up forward for them, I must say. And I think they've got Isla coming in once his work permit clears as well.
Yeah, Remy up front on his day is a striker who can trouble almost any defence. So if QP are up for the clash, they might be able to get something from the game.
Yeah, definitely. One of the late game for the Sunday, your mob, Cooksen, hopefully getting a win and getting off the board is United against Sunderland.
Yes.
You'd hope that you can beat Sunderland, wouldn't you? I think we can all agree on that one.
Yeah, but Louis van Gaal has started out slow at clubs before, so we could very realistically lose this game, but hopefully I expect...
Surely not 2 losses on the trot.
Yeah. I don't know, but what I want this team to be, goalkeeper, De Gea, left back, Antonio Valencia, centre back, have Smalling next to Rojo, then have Reece James, left back, midfield, have Herrera and Fletcher. Easy. That's a solid back six, I would say. Up front, for God's sakes, put Januzaj on a wing. Put Manta at number 10. I don't know who you can put on the left wing. Just put really anyone, not called Ashley Young. I mean, yeah, but up front, Rooney, it just, hopefully we can win. Just get off to a good start. Do the basics well. Get Van Gaal's system flowing. And hopefully the results can speak for themselves. And also, if you want, can you sign Di Maria in the next 48 hours? That'd be fantastic too.
Not asking for too much there, are you?
I'm just asking for Di Maria. 100 million total.
What do you reckon for the score in UFC? 6-7-0 to United?
I think that's being a bit modest there.
Being a bit modest? Double figures?
Well, I can hope so as much.
I'll certainly be hoping Cooksen's boys can torch the Mackens. So I think Sunderland had a draw with West Brom away, I think, on the opening.
2-2.
So, yeah, I guess it's a bit hard to read into their form. I think one of their goals was from Platamol, which was a bit of a fluke.
I can't believe that, yeah. Of all players, the score is Bremer.
I think it's only his second or third goal for the club.
Like
so I suppose it's not a bad goal to score if you're not going to score too many in your career.
To see what his goals to red card ratio would be, because it'd be pretty high, I reckon.
Well, there you go. That's the pop quiz for the week.
What's that?
That can be our pop quiz for the week.
Yeah.
Guess the ratio.
Yeah. And the final game, which is, not last but not least by any means, is Man City against Liverpool, the two title contenders from last season, squaring off in round 2. We see goals in this game.
I see Steven Gerrard getting a lot of shit thrown at him.
Oh man, that's going to be brilliant, isn't it? That's going to be brilliant. Just to see what they come up with. They both started quite well. Liverpool looked a little bit shaky against Southampton, but they settled towards the end and they didn't look too bad. City looked pretty impressive against Newcastle, and their players will be better for the run. They've had pretty limited pre-seasons because of the World Cup. It's a bit early, I think. You can't really read too much into the result for this game, I don't think, in terms of the title race. But it'll still be an interesting one to watch, I suspect.
Yeah, I suspect Man City to win probably. I reckon this is going to be a very scrappy, engaging game. Because, as we know, Liverpool were a high-scoring team last year, except their defence was, again, quite leaky. So I expect Rodgers, because last time they went attack and it backfired big time against Chelsea and that. So I reckon against title contenders, Rodgers is going to go on the defensive. He'll be slower. They'll be more deliberate about it. So I reckon it'll be 1-0. And I reckon the word slip will be said in that game approximately, let's call it 1,000 times at least.
If City take the lead and then lose the game to Liverpool, you can guarantee there'll be a lot of headlines about City letting the game slip, I think, particularly from Merseyside newspapers, I suspect, as getting a little bit of revenge. And vice versa, obviously, if Liverpool take the lead and then lose it, the predictable worldwide headlines will be about them letting the game slip. You get a score prediction from each of you?
I said 1-0.
1-0? And NUFC?
Yeah, I'll probably lean towards a scrappy, maybe a 1 or maybe 2-1 result in favour of City. I'll be interested to see if Mangala, their new centre-back, makes his debut.
Was there a reason he didn't play last year? Was it just in terms of match
fitness?
I
think he was just, he wasn't quite match fit. So,
didn't he get transferred right before the game day?
Might have been something like that.
Yeah, it was only a couple of days or something before the game. So, he's had about a week, I guess, to settle in. And although I guess Liverpool's not exactly an easy game to have your debut against, so it'll be interested to see if they give him the nod or if they maybe hold off and look for a team that's not so dangerous in attack.
Yeah, I'll probably go with a 2-1 Man City win as well, along with NUFC. Any final thoughts for you boys before we head off? I think we've covered a bit of the transfer news already. The interesting one I did want to touch on very, very quickly is the breaking news that Barcelona's been basically banned from 2 transfer windows as of 2 weeks' time, which I found very strange and very, very FIFA. That Barcelona basically lost their appeal, but whilst they were appealing, it was fine. They signed Suarez conveniently and whoever else they've managed to grab but the transfer embargo is going to take place from 2 weeks' time. It doesn't seem to make too much sense to me, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, it's pretty obvious, really. I mean, yeah, it's just, but they didn't want to risk Barcelona being crap, and despite being given a gimme of a lifetime, they still didn't sign a decent centre back, so they're still quite stupid. But
Vermaelen step up.
Was that their appeal, SM, that was rejected?
Yeah, so the appeal was rejected today, I think.
Oh, okay. So they can't appeal it again?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if they, try and push a few signings in before that ban takes place then, I guess.
Yeah, we'll be...
Watch youth teamers to suddenly increase who are very suspicious.
The youth team at Barcelona?
Yeah, because that's what got them in trouble in the first place for all this thing.
Yeah. Well, no,
so
exactly.
Expect some youth teamers to show up who aren't exactly legit. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, well, it will be interesting. A bit of a watch this space, I suppose, for Barcelona. Any other final thoughts, boys, just quickly?
Apparently, Falcao's on the move.
To either Real or potentially any chance that he's going to Liverpool to fill Liverpool supporters' heads with false hope? Any chance of that at all? Do we see, or just off to Real?
No,
just off to Real.
He's off to Real. Remember, he's owned by the third party, and let's be honest, you're a third party. You're in South America. Who's do you think's bigger, Liverpool or Real Madrid?
Yeah, it's not much of a choice.
He's gone to Madrid.
Yeah. Okay, well, on that note, I think we'll wrap up for the night. It's been a little bit longer than the previous week, but that's okay. We've had a whole bunch of matches to talk about, which has been pretty good. It's good to have football back. So we'll do it all again this time next week. So thanks very much, boys, for coming on.
No worries.
And thank you everyone for listening all the way to the end. And we'll see you on the forums.